Good morning. We are on page 88. On the bottom of page 88. Let's roll. Pasuk goes as follows, Pasuk Chavchet. Al tamar l'recha lech v'shuv u'machar etem v'yeshitacha. Do not say to your fellow, go and come back tomorrow, I'll give you, when you already have it with you. Next Pasuk. Al techrosh al l'recha ra'a v'hu yoshev l'betach itach. Do not devise evil against your fellow, one who dwells securely with you. And then continuing on, Al torvi madam chinam im lo gam lachach ra'a. Do not quarrel with any man without cause if he has done you no evil. Continuing on, Al tikne bi'ish chamas ve'al tivchar bechol derchav. Do not envy a man of violence and do not choose any of his ways. It's actually interesting. Chamas means violence. That's why they're called chamas. Yemach shema. Okay, it's actually, these are a couple of very interesting pasukim.
And they know that's why they called it?
I think so, yeah. Yemach shema. The first pasuk here is one of the most practical pasukim in Mishlei. Shlomo is telling us that if you can help someone now, if you look at the pasukim, he says, do not push it off. Why? Because delaying kindness is really a subtle form of cruelty, like Shlomo is saying here. Why? Because when a person comes to you and he says he needs something, he needs guidance, money, comfort, whatever it is, he needs a favor, he needs chizuk, it already took courage for him to ask you. You hear that? Meaning he started by asking you. That already took something out of him. And by you telling him, come to me tomorrow, when you have the ability to help him now, that hurts more than you even realize. Why? Because he had that courage to ask you. So you should have in mind, they walk away, feeling like, why I should have never asked him. They feel hurt, they feel embarrassed. They walk away feeling small. But Shlomo is saying here that don't do that. Why? Because if you have the ability to do that, help in that moment. And this is how a person becomes someone who HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves. Why? Because someone who makes the kindness immediate right away, and not a theoretical way. Because he's coming, do it right now. I said this the other day. Rav Moshe Feinstein actually has a very nice teshuvah in one of his shelot teshuvot, and one of his sefarim. He says that a person has to make ma'aser of his time. And when you think about it, what does that mean, make ma'aser of his time? He says the same way you have to give money, 10% of your money. You should give. He has a certain amount of time, but you give a certain amount of time to chesed, to kindness, to help out other people, not just with money. You could help someone much more with advice than with money. Sometimes, Okay, continue on the next pasuk. Do not plot harm against your fellow when he dwells truthfully with you. Shlomo Melech now is turning from withholding kindness, like we said before, to something worse. It's betraying trust, because the pasuk cuts really deeply. He says here that there are people who treat relationships like opportunities. What can I gain from this relationship? How can I manipulate this relationship? How can I use their trust for my benefit? Right? You see this all over in business. Your relationship. I heard this before. My brother always says this: network equals net worth. Right? The more people you network with, the more net worth you end up having, because you're networking.
Yeah.
But you should not network for net worth. You should network for network.
Yeah.
Right? For the point of building a relationship with someone. If you're building a relationship just for money, that just shows what's your relationship for.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then what happens when something you realize who's really But Shlomo is saying here, when someone trusts you, when they are yoshev lebetach itach, sitting securely with you, it's a tremendous responsibility. Why? Because hurting someone who trusts you is one of the greatest things in humanity, because you're hurting someone who trusts you, and that breaks everything. You have this with a relationship also. You have an argument with your wife, and she's like, I trusted you, how could you do this? Yeah. The idea of trust, hurting, it destroys, marriages, it breaks friendships, dissolves business partnerships all the time, because they say, where's trust? That's the most ideal thing, is that, a person should be a trustworthy person when it comes to business. Right. We say this, the Gemara in Shabbat brings down that when a person goes up to Shamayim after 120, one of the main questions they ask him is, did you work truthfully? It's the first question they ask. One of the first questions: did you work truthfully? They don't ask if you did this, if you did that, Did you work truthfully? Why? Because when a person is truthful, everything else, their whole life is a life of emet, and we have to be a person of emet to see truth. And in a world that's so messed up around us, everyone is trying to make an extra buck by screwing the other person over, right? We have to make an effort to be emet, with everything, not just with our business, with our life, with being honest, being true to ourselves. Because by definition, the only way we can grow is by being truth to ourselves. Because if you know what challenges you have, what pitfalls you have, when you understand that, that's when you can make a difference in your life. So it's not just being truth in your business, it's being truth within yourself. I know I have this issue, so I have to fix it. I know that I get upset at this, so I have to work on it. Because like we said, if you don't know that you have that issue, you can never fix it. But it takes a strong person to realize the issue. I'm not saying issue, to realize a problem that a person has, right? It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you have to work on yourself.
Challenge.
It's a challenge. Someone told me the other day, he says, Rabbi, I hate learning Musar. I said, why? He said, because I always have to fix myself. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what's bad with that? He goes, I just feel terrible about myself. I'm like, you're looking at it the wrong way. If you're looking at it, you want to become the best person you can be, there'll always be pitfalls along the way. You have to understand that this is an issue that I have, so you can fix that issue that you have. This is what he's being here. The truthful person understands what he has, and he could ultimately build on that. Next pasuk. Al tarovi madam chinam im lo gam lachara. Do not quarrel with a man for no reason if he has not harmed you. Shlomo Melech now is talking about the unnecessary fights that drain so much of our energy. Some people they'll explode quickly. They argue for ego. They take offense at everything or anything. Get triggered by the small things, escalate instead of de-escalating. Right? Shlomo Melech is saying you don't start fights when there's no real reason. Most conflicts in life are not about principle, they're about pride. Right? Most of them. When it comes to marriage, when it comes to business, right? How could he do this to me? Does he not respect me? Dude, chill. Yeah, cool. He could disrespect you for a second and move on. There's no point in using that disrespect to destroy your whole business now, or to destroy your whole marriage now, or to destroy your friendship with someone because he didn't respect you. Okay, he didn't respect you, move on. In the same marriage, you always have to give in. I'm sure you heard this, Michael. You always have to give in marriage.
Yeah,
no matter what, you always have to give in. And if there's no giving in, there's always going to be butting heads. And a wise person, right? He lets go. He doesn't take everything personally. He doesn't make every inconvenience that he had with a peer a war. He chooses peace when they're technically right. My mom always says this. She says this when I drive all the time. When you get upset on the road, she says it's better to be smart than to be right. Right? Be smart, don't be right. Because when you're right, how could he do this to me? He can never do this to me. Chill, relax, and move on. This pasuk is really, if you look at it, Shalom Bayit 101, it's parenting 101, it's community building 101. If there's no true harm, no real danger, then why break a fight? Unless someone is fighting with you, a guy is coming to you and telling you not to talk during tefillah, and someone gets upset. Remember that, Yoni? And they cause a fight.
Wait,
So
can
that's
you repeat what you just said? What does that mean?
What?
There's no true harm unless there's a.
If there's no true harm, there's no fight.
There's no true harm. Yeah, of course.
There's no point. There's no point of starting it. What's the point of you even? I think then there was true harm. You only felt a little, to beat the guy up with this everything. Continuing on. Im teknei beish chamas ve'al tivchar b'chol derachav. Do not envy the violent man and do not choose any of his ways. The pasuk is very common in our modern life now, because why would someone envy someone who's violent? Because from the outside, these people look very powerful. They look successful, right? They look like they're ahead of everyone else. They seem like they get what they want quickly. People hear these angry people. But Shlomo Melech is saying, don't be fooled by these type of people. Don't admire them. And you have this today actually a lot. A lot of the world, the reason why they're connecting to the left, liberal, because they feel like they're more powerful. So they feel like if they connect to them, it'll be much easier for them to get what they want. But Shlomo Melech is saying, don't be fooled. Don't admire them. Don't imitate them. Their success that seems like a success is really a mirage, because the victories that they have come from a lot of other consequences. What you think is a victory that they have is really not a victory, because they're all upset, they're depressed, they're just angry people, they're empty. Their life is really, the path that they chose for themselves is really destructive. There's nothing glamorous over there. There's nothing admirable about force, right? And there's nothing to envy about someone who climbs by stepping on others, and that's those type of people. Shlomo Melech is telling us here something very powerful. He said, power without morality is not success, it's a collapse. Because understanding that, if you're getting what you want by putting someone down, it just shows who you are as a person. Right?
Yeah.
If you get what you want by uplifting the person around you, that also shows how you are as a person. Right? So you have to choose our way, and don't be fooled by your surroundings. We'll continue tomorrow. Have a safe flight, bro.